And welcome to another episode of 50 Shades in Grey. Chemistry matters. Attraction matters. Sexual energy, it matters. For many men, that pull is physical first. That isn't shallow, it's biological. But here's the mistake we make. Chemistry can feel like evidence. It feels like information. Your body reacts. There's excitement, there's tension, anticipation. And when someone wants you, especially sexually, it feels validating, powerful. But being wanted is not the same as being chosen. Sexual attraction doesn't equal emotional availability, and intensity, especially early, isn't proof of long-term potential. Chemistry is real, but chemistry is often just familiarity mixed with intensity. Sometimes it's ego, sometimes it's projection, sometimes it's your nervous system lighting up, not your values aligning. And when you're dating intentionally, especially in midlife, chemistry can feel urgent because you don't want to waste your time. So you interpret spark as possibility, but compatibility is slower. Compatibility is consistency. Compatibility is someone who shows up when there's no adrenaline involved. And that doesn't always feel electric. It can often just feel calm. So this episode isn't about dismissing chemistry. It's about understanding it. So you don't mistake desire for alignment. Chemistry can feel powerful, and we need it. We need it in relationships, especially men. When you first meet someone, especially on a dating app, that instant when you first see them, that's chemistry. And you know sometimes whether you're in or you're out straight away. It doesn't mean that because you feel like you're in, it's going to last any longer than that date or the next date, but you need it to start with. Why do we trust chemistry? I think we trust chemistry because it's that feeling that gives us butterfly, a way of thinking this could be potential. But is that just like we've said before, everything that we want and everything that we hope for projected onto someone else? And is chemistry just initially an attraction? Our nervous system firing off, the adrenaline of meeting someone that we like physically without actually knowing any more about them. Is that why, especially on dating apps, things have a shelf life of around about 6 weeks and then they just peter out because you are just full on with it for the first 6 weeks because the attraction, the sexual chemistry, then it just dies because there's nothing more there after that. Your morals don't align. So what chemistry actually is, it can be familiarity and intensity. Because if there's things in this person that we meet for the first time that have traits of other people that we've been before, we recognize those straight away. And we feel comfortable in those because we're familiar with them. So they're things that we already know and we've already dealt with. So that be a part of feeling comfortable within that relationship. And sometimes it's the intensity of it and the relief of it, especially if you're on dating apps, the endless swiping of people and reading of what they want out of life that doesn't quite align with yours. And when you finally do meet someone, there's a relief and almost a desperation sometimes of thinking, you know, this could be the one, but this could be the one is very unlikely sometimes because we say it all the time. I think we just need to be thinking more along the lines of this is a possibility. And then that puts less pressure on the person we're meeting and it puts less pressure on yourself as well. Because there's nothing worse. And I found this when I was on dating sites. In the end, I didn't tell my friends that were in relationships what I was doing because I think to them it was always dating someone else. And that's not how dating apps work. Dating apps work in terms of you will be dating a lot of people because it's hard, especially in midlife, to find people that are compatible with your life. And people finding you compatible with their life as well, because they have existing responsibilities that they have to live up to, work, kids, houses, whatever it may be. And we have to fit into those things. So it's like we said before, it's a puzzle. And we need to be the right piece for the space they've got in their puzzle already. And that could be the last piece. We could be the last piece in a puzzle that we're looking for or they're looking for. And we want it to fit exactly, not, smash it in with a hammer and hope for the best. It's got to fit exactly. Otherwise, it's just not going to feel right. it's not going to look right. So sometimes when we meet new people, the unpredictableness of other people can feel magnetic. Why is that? Why do we feel like we're attracted sometimes to chaos and excitement? And I think that's just because it brings something into our life where our life can be calm. And all of a sudden it gets a little bit exciting because there's a few waves and oh, this is different, till those waves become way too big and then it's no longer exciting. It becomes absolutely terrifying and capsizes your vessel. And then that's the end of that. So we have to recognize when excitement can turn into something bigger like chaos and actually disrupt what we've already built in our life if we're happily single. And that's always the conundrum. If you're happy on your own already, you don't want something coming into your life that is going to be overly chaotic and overly dramatic. And at first, that may feel quite exciting. But after a while, you need some sustainability and you need some calmness to your relationships. Otherwise, it's not going to work. Now, some people love chaos. Some people need chaos. And for those people, they need to recognize that's exactly what they need in their life. They like the chaos. They get a kick out of the chaos. They get a kick out of the drama. And some people don't realize that they actually want that. But when they look at their life, they've always had that. And when they have calm in their life, they do probably find it boring. So again, when you're single, you do get to find out a lot about yourself and what you actually want. And with lots of people, especially if you keep asking the questions, why do I keep attracting these losers? Listen, if you keep attracting the same sort of people, that's something that you're putting out there, or the people that you're choosing because you're attracted to that. And sometimes it's a case of actually owning that and going, okay, then, well, if that's what I'm into, then I've got to be happy with that myself, or I've got to completely change how I am. And that's a hard thing to do as you get older. It really is, because you have to then change the things that you're looking for, and they may not excite you and you may find them boring. So you need to make sure that you know what you want and look at what you've had before in people, the things that you like and the things that you don't like, and learn to recognize those early in people as well. So there can be confusion between excitement and alignment. Because when you first meet someone, especially when there is chemistry, you can feel excited by it because your nervous systems are firing, the adrenaline of it, your heart's skipping a beat, and your stomach is having butterflies. And that can be exciting, but it doesn't mean that you align together, because it takes a while to find that out. It takes a few dates, a lot of time, and it can take up to 2 or 3 months before you even just start to scratch the surface of someone as well. Especially when you meet people, we're all on our best behavior when we first meet people. But as we grow more comfortable, we tend to be more relaxed. And when we could become more relaxed, we're more of ourselves. And once you get to that point, then you start to find out more about someone. And that's when you can find out whether you actually align, because the excitement may be still there in other things, but you start to find out more about the character of the person, and also they find out the character of you. It may annoy them that you leave cups out or that you leave the toilet seat up, all these things that we do that we're able to put up with or not put up with. So it takes a while to get to that point of knowing whether you're aligned. And that's just the first of many steps along the way of the relationship. But sometimes, especially early on, we can confuse that excitement for alignment. Why is it harder in midlife, though? Why did we not experience all of this when we were in our 20s? And I think a lot of the time, especially for women, you think that there's the scarcity of everything. There's not a lot of men left. They've all been taken, or all the women are gone. All the decent guys are gone. They're either gone or gay, and they're not interested in me. And there's always this with men where women say it's okay for men, because as they get older, they get better. As we get older, we're fighting age all the time. And I really don't think that's the case at all. Women now, when you look at women now, they're incredibly beautiful as they grow older as well. And lots of women, I think, definitely get better with age because they get more confident with age, as do men. I think it's how you look after yourself. I know from speaking to people that there's people that look after themselves very well, and there's people that don't. It's not a man and a woman thing. So I think that sometimes we believe these that there's not a lot of men out there, or there's not a lot of women out there. There's also time pressure in midlife, and that can be a big thing. And that's completely different for men and women. I think especially younger women who still want families, they're looking at, right, I'm on a time clock here. So they could be late 20s, early 30s, thinking, I don't want to be 45 and start having kids, or I don't want to be like the youngest mum at everyone at school. So there is this time pressure the guys don't have. So that's a big advantage for guys. They don't have this time pressure. They can date women that are younger because they don't feel that pressure. And also that can be really intense for a guy meeting a woman as well. They're like, I want kids. And women, understandably, they want to find that out early. They want to know if this guy wants a family because they haven't got 2 years to waste. And they may not have 2 or 3 years to waste. They want to know straight away whether this person wants kids. And as a guy, you may not have thought about that. You may not have thought about having kids or having more kids or wanting young kids. So that can be a real deal breaker for a lot of women in terms of when they meet guys, and vice versa for guys as well. So there is this time pressure that is not consistent with male and females. So that matters a lot to a lot of people. There's a lot more emotional investment faster as well. And again, because of this time pressure, you tend to rush things because you think, rightly so, that you don't want to waste sort of a year and a half on a relationship that's going nowhere. You do that in your 20s. And I think in your 20s, it seemed quite easy to stay with someone a year and a half and not worry about it if it didn't go anywhere, because you wasn't looking for it to go anywhere. You was just having a good time in the moment with that person, and you got to know each other, you grew together, and then you went your own ways, and you were 26 and you still wasn't ready for a family at that stage. So I think that's a lot different when you're in midlife, because you're thinking, I'm 40 now, or I'm 45 now. I don't want to be 46 and a half when I find out this doesn't work, because now I'm another year and a half older and I've had to keep myself in shape for another year and a half to make myself presentable. So, other other people are going to desire me, or they're going to want me. So, that all becomes harder in midlife, where it's a no-brainer in your 20s, and when you're younger, you just don't think about it. So there is definitely that emotional investment faster in people because we want to know. We haven't got the time to waste. So then what we end up doing is when there's an initial spark, and we need a spark in a relationship, you've got to have the chemistry. You've got to have that spark, because, it can be a slow burner. I've had relationships with people that were very slow burners to begin with. However, sometimes we do interpret spark and excitement as potential. We need to see that for what it is sometimes. It's a spark. It's a start. It's not the end. It's the start of something, and that's great. And we need to build on that. And then we need to find more about this person. But it doesn't mean that it's potential. It's a start. So just recognize it as that. So when we talk about compatibility with people, what does that actually look like? What does compatibility feel like? What does it look like? Compatibility for me, means that there's calm. There's not always drama. And when I say drama, I don't mean the ups and downs of life, because, life is about moments, and some moments are chaotic and hectic, but they are just that moment. But when it's constant drama all the time, that when you look at, you just think, what's the fuss? Well, there's not an issue here. What, is this about? You need some calmness in your relationship as well. And calm will look different to all sorts of people. One person's calm is another person's chaotic. So, recognize what calmness means to you in a relationship. You need consistency in a relationship. You need someone to be consistent for you, however that looks to you, whether that's, you speak to them every morning, or you speak to them every night, or you speak to them once every 2 days. You need consistency in their behavior, how they are with you, whether, you don't want where you're calling every day and you don't know if they're going to be in a good mood or a bad mood. And, you're sitting there thinking, God, what have I done? What have I said? Have I got to look back over messages? What's going on now? Why do they feel cold today? Because then you're constantly in a state of mess in your mind where you're constantly thinking, what have I done? Do I need to do more? Do I need to do less? Am I too much? Am I not enough? Are we not traveling fast enough? Sometimes when you're not thinking about things is when they're most controlled for you as well. So make sure that you have consistency that feels right for you. And I think compatibility is about shared values, how you see the world together, however that may be. And you've got to understand each other's values as well and sympathize with them as well. It's, from just how you speak to people, have the same values in how you see things. Now that could be political for some people. It could just be within relationship. It could be to do with families. It could be, to do with friends, however that looks. But you've got to have shared values and appreciation of each other's values. And I think they need to align. It doesn't mean that everything has to, but a lot of the time you need to share the same fundamental principles of how you want to live as well. You need to be available, and emotional availability is thrown around a lot. And I think for a lot of guys, they don't always completely understand what being emotionally available is and what that looks like. And for me, it means that you're present, you actually want a relationship. And I think we use emotional availability sometimes when people just aren't interested. I think, especially for a lot of guys, they'll probably hear that when they're just not interested in someone, they'll be labelled as, oh, they're not emotionally available. Well, maybe they are, but it's just not emotionally available for you. There is a big difference. So I think for a lot of guys, it's just making sure that you want a relationship, that you're with the person and you're not wasting their time as well. And I think that's what emotional availability is confused with a lot of the time. Is it's used as an excuse for not just saying, this is not going where I want it to go. I'm not feeling this anymore. Maybe it was just excitement and a spark at the beginning, but it's no longer there. It doesn't mean that I'm not emotionally available. It just means I know what I want and this doesn't look like it. And that's hard to hear and even harder to tell someone as well, I think. So sometimes being emotionally available is just being emotionally available for that person, willing to give them time, willing to give them your love, however you love. We all love in different ways. And it's about how that matches up with the other person as well. How do we test chemistry properly? We talk about chemistry, but how do we know whether it's just excitement or there's longevity? And I think sometimes it's just about slowing it down, not being in a rush with it. The relationship that I have now it's been over a long time where nothing happened. It was a friendship to begin with, and it grew from there. And that's very important. And I think sometimes that comes with experience of knowing it's not a rush. If things don't work out, they don't work out. I can only be the person that I am. They can only be the person that they are. There's a lot of stuff that needs to happen in the meantime. So you do need to enjoy moments as well, because like I said, life is full of moments and a lot of them aren't always great moments. So when good moments come along, enjoy them because that's all they may be. It's just moments, and you might have more moments in the future, but don't miss the ones that are coming at you straight away. Enjoy those. Watch patterns with people over words. It's very easy to say to people, you're going to do this and you're going to do that, and everything that he said, especially because we communicate so much now by mobile devices and on Instagram and on TikTok and sending messages, and they can be perceived and taken in so many different ways. And, voice messages now, I'm always leaving voice messages for people because most of the time I tend to do them when I'm driving. It just means I can utilize my time. But a lot of things do get lost, even on voice notes, because you can't always tell people's expressions and their tones and whether they're sincere. So over time, watch patterns over words, what people do rather than what they say. Do they show up when you need them to? Are they available when you want them now? whether you need to talk to them for 5 minutes or just FaceTime them for 5 minutes, or you need help with something, are they always available for you? And so it's very important to notice people's patterns, because when patterns change, sometimes that could be the start of something that you need to notice, because that could be a change in them or a change in you. So you need to understand your own patterns as well. Try to remove your fantasy projections. We've all got an idea in our head of the person that we want. And sometimes, especially on dating apps, because we can see a picture and we can think to ourselves, this person is that way and they're going to speak this way and they're going to do these things. And then we meet them and then they go out of the window completely. And other times we try and force what we want onto people when it's really not them. And they might try and do their best to entertain that because they like you. But if it's not something that they're comfortable with, eventually they're going to find that tiring. And if they don't confront you with it, they may just think, I'm done with this. I can't do this anymore. So we've got to make sure that we're not projecting our fantasies and trying to make them fit. And we're back to that puzzle again. We're not trying to put a bit that's not exactly right into our last piece of our space on our jigsaw to make it work for us. Ask clarifying questions to people. And we alluded to this last week in the podcast. Ask difficult questions. Ask people about whether they want kids. Don't be afraid to ask these things, especially for people that still want families. If that's what you want, you've got to make sure that you're finding that out early before you become emotionally invested in a person that you're then going to need to make a decision with and give up on something that you wanted because of someone else. So make those decisions early and ask those questions early, those clarifying questions, to find out what you want. Ask those questions, silly questions. Even if you, in your head, you think, there's something not right with this guy, are you in a relationship still? Are you married? Are you still living with your ex-wife? Have you actually moved out of the family home yet? Are you seeing anyone else? Are you dating lots of people? Are you just looking to date one people on this dating app? Or are you looking to date 4 or 5 people on this dating app? And whatever the answers are, you just got to make sure that they're okay for you and you know where you stand. If they're still seeing 2 or 3 people, then maybe you should do the same too. And you can see them when you want, and because you might date someone else and that might go somewhere. So make sure that you're asking these questions. Chemistry is a spark, and sparks are exciting, but sparks, they don't build the structure. Compatibility, that builds structure. Sexual attraction can start something, but emotional safety does sustain it. Being desired feels good, but being understood, that can feel secure. If you're dating intentionally, security matters much more than intensity. You don't need to ignore chemistry because it's important. You just need to test it. Slow it down, remove the fantasy, watch behavior over time. Because chemistry disappears when clarity enters the room. It was never compatibility. And that kind of connection that lasts won't disappear just because you asked for consistency. Thank you for listening to 50 Shades in Grey today. Please subscribe, please follow. We're on Instagram and we are on TikTok, and we'll catch up with you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.